Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Our next speaker is going to talk to us about the way that he has made banking painless. His goal is to make banking and transferring fiat and crypto seamlessly across border. It's a new economy. He has tapped into what are the biggest challenges, and he has solved those challenges through RedFi. His name is Soren Azorian. He's an investor. He's a venture capitalist. He's a supporter of the community. It's more than that, he's a great human being that believed in human potential. So let's welcome him to the stage with a big round of applause. A lot of energy. Come on, people. Yes. One more time.
Hello. Yes. Oh, all right. Again, I want to start with God first. Thank you. I'm here, and thanks, Stephen, my buddy, my pal, and the entire Eth Chanel organization. You guys are doing a thing which nobody would dare to do, and I applaud for that. I appreciate you. As you guys know me, Soren Azorian, CEO and founder of the RedFi and Redline Lab, and part of this great economy and ecosystem of Panama. When I started here, it was different. It was like 4 or 5 years ago, and many conversation was just a conversation. Nobody was there to do it because they were waiting for somebody else to come and do it. And I said, my hand is up. Can I start trying to do these things? And then we came to Panama to not only create a company, we came to Panama to create a movement. Many of you guys know me and know my story of the red line, but we're trying to literally cross the red line for many things, not just for your personal opportunities, also for you to just flourish the ideas and make sure whatever you have in your heart, just be able to monetize it on a different kind of fashions, depends on what you're trying to do. With that said, when we started, the biggest, and still it is, the biggest issue was everything was separated: banking, crypto, exchange, custodial, and you have to be able to do one thing or cross-border payments. You have to use 4, 5, 6, 7 companies all in all, and hopefully, you will get your money, your funds, if the company is correctly set up. But with us, as you can see it on a screen, RedFi is a seamless US banking plus crypto all in one place. We are a fintech company. So what does mean is like, as far as the technology, we are building with the latest and greatest ones. We're integrating with most of the layers. We're building the entire thing through the machine learning, AI, predictive market analysis. So our company is growing based on the technology growth. So if we are focused on multi-chain aspect of the thing, not just per se just one chain, but under RedFi you can find Solana, of course the OG Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polygon, and many other markets and the layer 1s and layer 2 to be able to trade. What we solve is like literally fast compliance, borderless finance and payment in one place. And why it matters, because when 16 years ago Satoshi started with Bitcoin, everything was about the peer-to-peer transactions. But we saw in the last 16 years, after the smart contract introduction with Ethereum and many more after that, everything from the convergence that you see on the screen started from be able to offer CeFi or DeFi or TradFi, and now it's a real-world assets and deepin service and product all into this glamorous conversion of the financial shift. And for us, finance is just not anymore banking beside crypto. It is all in one place, and we want to make sure everybody has the way to be able to engage with this entire ecosystem. We know, and we've been all challenged. Many of you guys on this stage or on this space right now had a problem with the bank, had a problem with the exchanges, had a problem with DEXs or CFI platforms or any sort of trading bots. And you know how crazy and expensive and challenging it is to be able to cross-border your transactions and your payments, especially when it comes to fiat. Many of the crypto companies or many of the companies which they are in this region or elsewhere, when they're touching crypto, most of the time their bank accounts were closed. They were unbanked, or with the choke point 2.0 we had in the US, nobody really was like banking. Big companies were out of business just because nobody was banking them. And if you don't have a banking system integrated to the financial ecosystem, automatically your on ramp, which is the most important part to bring the old money to the new money, wasn't working. So that restriction on crypto business is the challenge which is still going on, because not many people are able to still use services like ours because of the limitation they have as institutional family offices. They have to report some ways and shape or form, which is not allowing them as a regulated company to still use our service or such services. But the other side opportunity is, let's say, $2 to $3 trillion of digital asset industry literally need a trusted, accountable solution, which we're trying to provide with the RedFi and other companies which we have on the Redline Lab ecosystem. When we're talking about the businesses require alternative financial systems, old financial system doesn't work. It doesn't produce enough yield for people to be able to offset the inflation and all other challenging thing which is old, traditional, or TradFi money is building. But a combination of the TradFi and DeFi is the way we're trying to pursue and go forward. How are we solving it? Literally seamless banking and crypto integration. You can manage your fiat and crypto in just one platform. So when you're starting with a RedFi, the first step is click, open your user individual account or your business account. Go through the very simple KYC and AML. As soon as you got your open account, when you log in, after, of course, authentication, the security, 2FAs, and et cetera, you'll be able to log into your account. When you're in your account, you will see your US dollar account and all your crypto accounts at the same place. Think of it as, let's say, if you're in the US and you log in and you're online banking with a Chase or Mercury or whoever you guys are doing banking with, and next to it, you see all the cryptos. And you'll be able to easily move the money and crypto back to back with each other. Right now, you have a US dollar account with us, but you will, within the next few weeks, we have a Mexican peso, Colombian peso, euro, dirham for Dubai. All of them will be tiled over there, so you can use a multi-currency, multi-cross-border at the same time very easily. Managing fiat and crypto in one place, and then custodial service. I was speaking with our Bitcoin gentleman over here. They're using Fireblocks. We also use Fireblocks, Anchorage, BitGo, all of them to make sure custodial services are regulated and be able to help the people to secure their assets. Payment solution and treasury management are also built through the names I just mentioned. So if you are using the treasury management through RedFi, you'll be able to make sure everything is set up correctly. You can be in and out of the positions anytime you wanted to. If you're adding to your treasury, let's say P&Ls every month, Bitcoin or Ethereum, you will be able to just send in the fiat and just connect to your treasury account and be able to manage that. Other thing which we've done for our clients, you can send and receive invoices through our platform, which just makes it easier for accounting and accountability of your financial reporting. So let's say if end of the month you have done 100 transactions and your accountant want to report, you can easily export that report and give it to your accountant, connect to the QuickBook or any other taxing services which you are using, and they'll be able to report your tax, your income, your exchanges, etc., so you don't have to be liable, not you personally, not your business-wise. We still, and these are all for free, by the way. And if you want to integrate, we are also working soon to be able to give you more details on the taxation and regulation, so you'll be able to have one place for everything included here. And whatever I'm showing here, I will share later on. So if you want to have a copy of it or forward to your companies or your individual, you want to have an use for it or read it, you can use that. You can also go to do the QR code and go to the platform immediately. Competitive edge is, again, we designed this to be in one thing and one place for entire thing, from treasury to on-ramp, off-ramping, to buy and sell of the crypto, and securities are always top of the mind, and we want to make sure your assets are not only faster with the settlements, and we be able to borderlessly send this payment and securely anytime. Traction and growth. Here is the part which is it's ongoing effort from all of our vendors and us from our side, which is we are integrating and expanding to lots of partnership with the banks. Just for the last 48 hours, we have extended our partnership with 3 more major companies, from brokerages to custodial services in LATAM, to be able to work with them in the near future. And expanding our footprint right now, as we are mainly focused in Central America, meaning from Mexico, Colombia, Guatemala, Panama, Costa Rica. We want to just see how we can integrate this one with a similar positioning on other places outside of LATAM. Upcoming features, as you know, right now many people are giving the yield of 4%, 2%, 3%, 7% DeFi's or TradFi services. Some of the banks are offering, or Robinhood is offering 4%, 4 to 5%. We'll be able to have that fund very soon. So if you are keeping your treasuries on the US dollar with us or with a crypto, you'll be able to securely have that yield come to you. And we're just going to probably charge very, very little points to be able to navigate that entire exchanges. And we're talking about the euro, as I mentioned, COP, Mexican peso, and then also we have a dirham for Dubai. It's coming soon, UAE, and tokenization. Tokenization of real-world assets, tokenization of the fund, it will be something which will be offered through RedFi by integrating to Thesaurus and all other platforms which we are partnered with already. As a thank you, as always, we want you to come in and easily use our services. If you're an individual, open your account, get your credit. Your business, open your account, get your credit, try us, give us a feedback. If you see there is a feature you want to add because your company needs it, if you're a brokerage and you need a certain kind of omnibus account to be able to just manage the entire ecosystem through that one account, you will be able to have that. So the feedback is the most thing we're driving on. And if you give us a feedback, and I know Steven here gives us lots of feedback, we're trying to just keep building it and keep building it, and want to make sure that feedbacks can extend. So my goal is not only to have your business, we want to make sure we have you active as a part of our ecosystem we are building. Is there any question I can answer? Yes, sir. Microphone. And by the way, when you sign up, make sure before April 30th to do the verification and send your KYCs, and just email the help@redfi.io. PBW, so you'll get your credit done. And then automatically, when you're sending it, it goes through our AI machine and then sends it to database. So we have to keep track of every single one who's registering. Yes, sir.
Yeah. How do you handle the users? How do you handle the individual accounts and the private keys? Do you own the private? Do you control the private keys inside RedFi, or does the user control the private keys, or do you have some account abstraction?
Well, this is centralized finance. This is completely centralized. So basically, when you're opening an account, we give you the pair of keys, and mainly comes in again with let's say Bitcoin integration, Fireblocks, or whatever the provider we're using. Those are the one they're doing it. It's segregated, separated from us. We don't touch anybody's money. We don't use anybody's account. So we don't lend the money. Your money is your money, and your control anytime you want it. When you have it open, let's say when you open a RedFi account, first of all, you will have a US dollar account. What does that mean? It's not look like the ones which you guys seen over here. Let's say, I don't want to name the names, but because we are all working in the same companies. But if you're opening a US dollar account in Panama, you're opening actual Balboa account. So that doesn't have the FDIC insurance. That doesn't have many other things which we are providing through our RedFi to you. So that part, let's say, for example, you open an account from Panama, and then we assign Cross River Bank to your local banking. So Cross River Bank going to give you actual account under your own name, first name and last name, or the other accounts, let's say SSB Bank and many others we have, Portage and whoever we're working with them, which is like over 10 to 12 banks in the US and Canada. So you have your own account name. What does it mean is, let's say something happened, RedFi doesn't work anymore. You can easily claim your money with a Portage Bank or any other bank, which is your bank account with them through us. Just like what many people know Mercury, and Mercury does the same way, like a fintech bundled on the packages which they're providing through their banking licenses of the other vendors they're using. But again, your answer correctly, we are giving you our own wallet address to be able to use it, but you can just in and out of it anytime you want by using a counterparty and send it out of the platform. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Same thing with your business.
Yeah, and the account, but the centralized the blockchain account is central. You control the centralized account. I'm talking more of a FTX a situation similar to FTX, where if I don't want to catastrophize, but something bad happens. In that case, can I exit? Can I exit without your approval?
100%. So basically, when we build it, that's what I was talking about the Fireblocks and Bitco and Anchorage. You guys already have the account directly there. So you're using this one as a main place to just get the job done instead of having the 6, 7, 8 accounts for different kind of companies. All is in one place, and you'll be able to do that easily. Yes. Yeah. So if any other question, if not, I'm here always. Or back to the Panama Blockchain Week. Stephen is part of our entire ecosystem of the Redline Lab. So if there's no question, you guys can just do the QR code, open an account, try the services. And if you want to have further question, you can go to our website, click on the chatbot, the AI chatbot, which we are the one designed and build it. You can ask all the question in English or Spanish. You'll be able to find the answer. And if not, help@redfi.io can be accessed 24/7. Our team will be answering any question you have. And hopefully we'll see you on the platform and then share your business. I want to close with a Redline Lab, and many people know us as a Redline Lab. At the Redline Lab, we start this movement of crossing the red line because we want to make sure we go back to the community and build it all together. We have lots of community members here in Panama and in Latam generally to helping us to achieve that goal. What we have done the last 12 months by investing into ecosystem from Panama and Costa Rica mainly right now, we have 10 companies. And I'm proud to say 10 companies right now are powered by Redline Lab, and many more are coming soon into the platform. We are here to build a community and help each other. So anyone who is builder, anyone who wants to have an investment and to be able to bring their initiative live, they'll be able to use our services. With that said, thank you so much again. I appreciate this.
Thank you, Soren. We're going to take a brief 8-minute intermission, and next we'll have Gabriel Campa from Tower Bank with us. Be patient. In 12 noon, we're just waiting for Telemap to join us.
Hey guys, welcome back. We are going to have a very interesting conversation with Gabriel Campa from Tower Bank, head of digital assets. Tower Bank, please. Well, it's been pioneering hybrid financial, crypto-friendly, um, and I think it's made to make this transition as familiar as possible. So first, we're gonna start with, tell us a little bit about yourself within the ecosystem and how you got to this point, right? To have this, start with something about you.
Well, I'm the head of digital assets for Tower Bank. I'm the one that's designing and connecting both worlds, the traditional space and the crypto space. I got into crypto, it was the beginning of the pandemic. I was stuck in my house and I started mining Ethereum. And it was with some friends, we started mining Ethereum, and it wasn't easy, right? Because you had to configure the GPUs and the clocks, and I started talking to the community worldwide, and I found a very open community, willing to help. When you go somewhere else, normally they don't want you to participate because they don't want competition, and here was the contrary, right? They didn't view it as a competition. They viewed it that the more the merrier. So I started understanding the crypto space, how it worked, and when the bank was doing their 10-year plan, they discovered that there was clients using our credit cards to buy crypto. And we saw that we were receiving funds from exchanges. And for a bank, not knowing where the funds are coming from is a problem.
Of course.
Right? So at first, we saw it as a risk because we didn't know where the money was. And we started talking to the community. And it was amazing because many people came to us and it was like, and they came with presentations. Like, this is what I do, this is how I do it, this is what you need to do, this is how this works. And fortunately, I had been working on this for a couple of months, so it wasn't new for me. So and they were surprised that, because you've seen this. You go to a bank, you talk to them about crypto, and they're like, what the heck is that? We had an idea of what it was and how it worked, but we started to understand their needs, and we saw it was not a risk, but a huge business opportunity.
Can we backtrack a little bit? How do you, because you just mentioned that banks are, it's a risk not knowing where the money is coming from, but also banks tend to be very traditional in the way they do business, and innovating, it's a big step because you risk not having a good experience for the customer. I mean, and that's some other things. So how was that?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, fortunately, the idea to go crypto came from the top, right? So it was a mandate from the CEO, from the president of the bank, from the board of directors.
Was that surprising?
No. I mean, I've been very close to the bank for many, many years. The president of the bank is one of my best friends. He was mining with me Ethereum. So at the end of the day, the mandate came from up there. So at the end of the day, being a very extreme, it was not a democracy, right? It was a mandate to execute and figure out any way to do it, right? So we had to look at regulation. We had to talk to corresponding banks. We had to talk to the regulator. We had to bring chain analysis on board, find our own solution. I mean, at the end of the day, we didn't have to convince anybody in the bank to do this. Fortunately, we're a medium-sized bank, so we're a bit more agile. It's easier too. So immediately they gave me a team. I had my own technological team. I had my own business team, my own marketing team, and
so this digital asset, head of digital asset, was created pretty much to launch into creating this crypto familiar with traditional.
Exactly. It was created from the ground up. What we did was we created a fintech inside the bank, and the way I operated was as a fintech.
How does that go with regulations, with the superintendents?
No, at the end of the day, it was still the bank, but my way of operating was as a fintech. So I had my own teams, we were building agilely, and I brought in and say, at the end of the day, normally you have to, all right, let's see what technology we're going to do, how much we're going to spend on this. And this was more like, all right, let's design it, find the best technology for it, and let's bring it in. Let's go to the best player in crypto analytics. Let's go to the best player in technology. Let's talk to AWS. Let's talk to and bring them in. Normally, projects and banks, budget is very important because banks, in contrary to a fintech, a bank can never report loss. Right? If a bank reports a loss, they can get intervened by the regulator. So that was not an option. So we had to separate funds, and
you had to prepare the road first.
Exactly.
Before you start.
So we went little by little. By the time that we got involved in this was, if I'm not mistaken, May 2022. The president announced that they were vetoing the law. The regulator was saying that no crypto, that they were against the law.
Right.
And the day before, we had planned to have a small meet and greet with people of the community to get some insight on what they want, what they need, how we can build this better for them. And the night before, the CEO and the president of the bank tells me, you know what? Once you get up there, tell everybody that we're crypto friendly. Let's go against the system.
How did that feel?
Because
I mean, you've been doing all this work, and then
I was like, "Are you sure you want me to say that?" Because there
are
was,
we ready?
not really that, because there was people from the regulator at the event, right? So I was like, because we've never. The reason we've been able to do what we do today, and the reason why we've been able to bring this to the community is, if you look our name in the bank, Tower Bank, you're not going to find one negative news. Right? We're very careful how we do business and who we do business with. We're very conservative. I can't say that anymore. Now we've gone to the other side. But we're still very, very conservative. For example, if you saw when I launched the app, it's only Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT, USDC. Can I offer more things? Yes.
But you're taking it
little by little. Let's grow little by little. Let's make sure it all works. Once I am confident that the system is stable, that there's no bugs, then I can start.
So
offering.
you say it's like it's in a beta stage right now.
It's in a beta. It's ready.
It's ready.
It's ready. It's in a beta stage. There's some bugs. Well, yesterday we had 3 or 4 bugs. They were fixed immediately. So today a new update came out for the app, fixing many of the bugs. And that's the world of developing software, right? At the end of the day, you're never done. You always have to be fixing stuff. But at the end of the day, it's been a slow process, but internally moving fast, like designing fast. For example, something that we're offering today is Bitcoin-backed loans. Right? You give me your Bitcoin.
Tell us about that. How does that work?
All right. You give me your Bitcoin. We do a 50% loan to value, margin call at 65%, and you get cash immediately. No credit score, none of that stuff.
So as a collateral, or
Bitcoin is a collateral, correct?
Right.
50% loan to value. And we also do Bitcoin-backed credit cards.
How seamless is that request for the loan? And I guess it works with the app as well? Like
No, it's not in the app yet. We're doing it manual. To be able to take it mainstream, it has to be fully automated, right?
Okay.
Not only to protect the bank, but also to protect the client. Right?
Right.
I have to give you a method where you can fund the account quickly if the market crashes. Right? That's always a possibility. So we're doing a small scale, testing it out, seeing how it works, how the market is behaving.
You have a cap right now on that.
I have a cap. It's a flexible cap. All right? It depends how the market is. We explain people the risk. All right? At the end of the day, the crypto community, especially those Bitcoin holders, they know the risk, right? But we're going little by little. Our success has been not going crazy, right? Did we have the opportunity to go crazy? Yes. Did we? No. It was a very bad idea.
What would be that metric? You said it's been a success, but of course we're not playing it fine again. It's ongoing. So what is your metric for success? Well, first of all, tell us what are the biggest challenges to implement this, and then what's your metric for success?
To be very honest, the biggest challenges have been developing the technology in-house. That's one thing that we did. We did it all in-house.
Okay. So you have to pull a team. Are they all local?
No, there's people from outside of Panama
Okay,
and inside
all right.
Panama, but it's all been designed in-house.
Okay.
I designed it from the ground up. And that's been the most difficult part, to build it. The talks with the corresponding banks or the regulator has been many talks, but they've always been very, very open to allow us and help us build this. Transforming the mentality inside the bank has been a process. Some people were faster than others. Some people were more, let's say, challenging the change a little bit. But one of the beauties of this is that the results were very fast. So when you work in an organization that for the entire life, results take years to take effect, and that kind of keeps you down because you work very, very hard and you don't see the fruits of your hard work until 5 years later. And now you work very, very hard and you see this in 2 months. It's like, oh shit, I'm really doing something and it's doing an impact.
Right.
When you see, and this is very out there, right? What the community thought about banks is that they didn't like banks. But when you see clients coming to the bank and congratulating you and thanking you, and that keeps people up, like that, like, hey, wow, people are talking about where I work, and it's making them happy and it's solving their problems, and they're very thankful every day. That keeps people. I mean, I had my team working for the past 8 months nonstop to be able to do that launch yesterday.
How many users do you have in the app right now?
Right now in the app, I haven't checked the list. Right now, there's like 200, 300 people. But in the bank, we have like over 6,000 clients.
No, but I mean, in using the app for crypto. You have
Yeah,
about
right now in the app,
300.
there's like 200, 300 people right now. Our plans are to, by the 15th of May, mid-May, 15th of May, the idea is to onboard all the clients into the app. All our crypto, our accounts in the bank.
What is the next step into, as we know, there's still a lot of skepticism around the topic. Like you said, even inside the bank, you mentioned the word crypto and people, what is that? Do I understand it? What's the next step now to make that transition for the rest of the client, to give that option? Or do you have a product in place?
Well, the product is in place. So today I have around 6,000 clients in the bank that do crypto with us. All those clients are going to be taken to the app by the 15th of May. All right, we're gonna take everybody over there. The idea is the idea behind this is eliminate the manual work, and you can self-serve yourself. So you can receive the crypto into the wallet, and you decide when you sell it, or you decide where you send it. It's gonna be all self-service. But the next steps are, first, 15th, 20th of May, we're gonna make the app public in Panama, in the app stores. And our idea is to start expanding into different countries in the region. But more of that's going to come. Right? I still have to automate the Bitcoin-backed loans, so you can do it straight from the app. Also, there's a product that I'm dying to launch, with a Bitcoin-backed overdraft account.
Tell us about that.
All right. Let's say you get home and your wife tells you the fridge broke, and you don't get your salary until, I don't know, in 2 weeks. And your wife tells you, or you find the fridge, or you're sleeping with the dog outside. Well, this will allow you to give the bank your Bitcoin. You'll have access to an overdraft where you'll pay interest daily, right, a small fee, and you buy your fridge. And once you get your salary, just pay back you covered the overdraft. You didn't have to sell your Bitcoin, because that was going to be your next option. You're going to have to go out, sell your Bitcoin, go buy the fridge, because you had two options: or you sleep with the dog outside, or you find the fridge. Right?
This seems familiar, right?
And the idea came from, one day I was in a call with some YouTubers, crypto YouTubers in the States, and he told me he said that same story. He was a client of Crypto.com. The fridge broke, and his wife told him that. He was a big miner, and his wife told him, "Oh, you buy a fridge." So fortunately, he had a Crypto.com card, and he went and he bought he bought the fridge with
The
crypto
fridge, yeah.
directly. And that's where the idea was born. But why do you have to sell your crypto? Maybe I can give you a better
You can
solution.
leverage, right?
You can leverage it. So that's another thing that we want to do. I mean, at the end of the day, our plans are whatever you can do in traditional space of banking, bring it to crypto. And the idea is also to keep co-creating with the community, right? Understanding their needs, what we can do better. We're far from perfect. There's a lot of things
It's a process.
It's a process, right? Only thing is, given that we're highly regulated, for us is a little bit more. We're challenging that regulation, and we're trying
At
to
what
make it
level?
better.
With the superintendent, bank, or with the
super-
laws?
No, we're looking at both. We're talking directly to the people promoting the new laws and telling them what we believe is a good place to start. Regulation is necessary, but over-regulation is bad.
Right.
And it's not only bad for the community, it's also bad for us as a bank, because we are highly regulated. But we've been able to demonstrate that you don't need a regulation to build. Right? And imagine us, a highly regulated entity is offering something that is not regulated in its country.
There may be a conflict there,
Right.
of course.
But not only that, the announcement the mayor did yesterday.
Right. Tell
Okay.
us about that. How that came about? Because there's been a lot of discussion that the way he framed the whole thing, as if the alcaldía had a system, but it just happens to be that you guys are the ones that are helping to have that option for the alcaldía.
Correct.
Right.
The mayor came to us a few months ago and was like, hey, I want to be able to receive payments in crypto. How can we do it? And we're like, well, I mean, I can give you a solution. And we can take care of it. The thing is, how do we solve the legal framework? Because in Panama, by constitution, any public entity has to receive funds directly in a government bank. So Banco Nacional or Caja de Ahorro.
Right.
They cannot receive funds in another bank. And then what they did was, well, my lawyers and their lawyers, they sat down and they started analyzing the law, and what they discovered was there's no legal framework to receive payments in credit cards either.
Interesting.
Because the way it works is
Whatever the bank, wherever bank issue the card is the one who's gonna
the one that's
make the payment.
is the one that sends the funds.
Right.
So at the end of the day, what the municipality has to receive is dollars. They can't receive They cannot receive credit card payments. Technically, they cannot receive crypto payments. They have to receive cash.
Okay.
Right. So we just got on board on the same thing. Instead of saying credit cards, it's going to be crypto. The municipality does not have an account with the bank. The municipality has signed an agreement with our fiduciary accounts, with our trust. Right. So it's an escrow account.
Okay.
Where the escrow does is receive the crypto, convert it immediately to dollars, and at the end of the day, transfer all the funds to the municipality's account in Banco Nacional or Caja de Ahorro.
And they right with like it
And
was.
inside the framework. And at the end of the day, we're going to give them the technology where you just have to. It's going to be almost the same system as with a credit card. The only thing is you're going to scan a QR code. It's going to say the amount you have to pay, and you're going to pay for the fund. And the way
Now,
we.
Question. What the crypto community in Panama was saying is that for them to actually receive crypto funds, the alcaldía will have to have a digital wallet. Now, isn't that a threat for the traditional bank?
But they don't need a wallet for that because
I mean, you're already in place doing it for them.
the escrow is doing that to receive it. The municipality is not receiving crypto. They can't receive crypto by law.
Exactly, they can. But
Yeah.
that's what the crypto was saying. Like, the mayor came saying that now we receive crypto. And some people were saying, well, this is just like another payment processor.
We're acting as a payment processor for them, exactly. And at the end of the day, we have reduced the cost a third of what it used to cost.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, yeah.
But then it would be more than a solution for the alcaldía, it's a solution for your clients.
No, not for my clients, for any client.
For everybody,
For
of course.
it's an option. All right. What had just happened is Panama is officially crypto friendly. That's what's been announced,
Yes.
right? How many people are going to pay with crypto? Honestly, we haven't thought about it. honestly, we're just giving you another option.
Right.
But what it is true and it's official, Panama City is crypto friendly.
I thought I was going to get a round of applause. I mean, Panama is crypto friendly, right? So tell us now, we still evolving. From your standpoint, what do we still need to move forward?
Definitely more players have to get involved, right? We can't be the only one. And the reason I say this is because I hear the stories every day, right? People are getting robbed left and right. People are getting scammed left and right. More options have to be in place. More education has to be in place. So that has to happen. Some kind of regulation has to happen, right? There has to be a legal framework to give everybody an equal playing field, right? I am of the belief, and actually I was talking to other fintechs at the other event, and it's like, I'm a bank, you're a fintech, but we need to have the same legal framework. It can't be easier for you or harder for me or vice versa.
Right.
We're offering the same thing or similar things, but it's using the same rails, crypto. So we have to do AML, we have to do KYC, but it can't be that you ask less questions than I do, or it has to be an equal playing field.
Well, you already have to go because you are highly regulated. Your KYC has to be more thorough than
But
a fintech.
I am of the belief that it can be easier. We are making it easier. You can ask anybody that did their onboarding 2 years ago, and they look the onboarding today, it is night and day. All right.
So you can do the onboarding through the app as well.
You can do the onboarding through the app. So if you signed up to receive the app, we're sending emails every day to everybody that signed up, and they're getting access to the app. You don't have to be a client. If you're a client, you can access the app through your credentials, the same credentials in the bank. But if you're not a client, you can create your account from the app, and your account is open literally immediately.
Convert from crypto to fiat.
Convert to crypto to fiat, fiat to crypto, wire transfers worldwide, access to a debit card that you can use it worldwide, and you'll have access to the other products the banks offers, like traditional loans, credit cards, car loans.
So your credit cards can be backed by, like if you have crypto in the app. and
That's
your
going to be
wallet.
the next stage. Right now, you have to sell your crypto, but the next stage is where it's going to, the way I'm designing it is going to be like a dual account. So you can pick from the app, I want to use my crypto or I want to use my fiat. Or you can say, if I run out of fiat, take it from my crypto.
Okay.
I mean, given that everything is in-house, the options are endless. I am very confident that the community has even more ideas of things that we can do, and definitely we're open to talk about it, of what else we can do, what else we can bring. Some things will take more time. Some things will require some regulation. Some other things, unfortunately, I cannot have 50 teams working in parallel and building.
Right.
I have to concentrate and go step by step.
Right.
But we're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. Definitely, don't think we're going to return to the community.
One of the things that some of the speakers, or we actually have 3 different speakers talk about laws and governance. And one of the things is that people is of the idea that because it's crypto, it's supposed to be safe, that it can't be scammed. And it comes when we talk about investments and such topics, right? But that doesn't exempt the individual of doing their own due diligence. Now, you are opening this, kind of like democratizing the access through the app, and of course that's going to have a positive impact in the bank. What happens when a client comes and tells you, hey, your app, the cost that I didn't understand that and I lost money? Because I'm sure that people, you say we're talking about people don't understand the technology, they just want to use it, but they use it, they don't understand it, and then come to you and they say, well, you have to be liable. How do you handle that?
That's an interesting. First, let's go what the regulation really says, right? I am of the belief that people have the right to do with their money whatever they want to do with their money, right? That's a right of everybody. But it is true that, and the reason rules exist, rules don't exist for the good people, rules exist because of the bad people, right? And it is impossible to identify who is who. So unfortunately, you have to apply the rules to everybody.
To everybody.
Right? It's unfair, yes, okay? But that's the way it has to be. But what we can do is make it easier, right? And try to ask the right questions, and try to ask the question that we need to ask, and try to understand. But look at it also as a protection. For example, nobody here has access to chain analysis, right? So you have no idea where you're sending that crypto. Do you want to be related to a terrorist?
Of course not.
Do you want to be related to a scammer or to a trafficker?
Of course not.
Right? But you have no way of knowing if the person next to you is one of those. You have no way of knowing.
Right.
So look at this as a way to protect you, right? 99.4% of all crypto is not tied to illicit activity, right? Only 0.6% of crypto in the world is tied to illicit activity.
Is that so?
It's this very small percentage, but you don't want to be part of that 0.6%, or you don't want to be related to that 0.6%. So let's go to a case where you're sending crypto through Ikigi to somebody, and we detect that that wallet is related to a scam or to fraud or to an illicit actor. I'm going to stop that transaction. I'm going to contact you. I'm going to tell you, hey, we detected this. Who does that wallet belong to? Right? And I'm going to tell you, we've detected it's a scam. So in other words, I just protected you from getting scammed because you didn't know that who you were trading with was a scammer. But I imagine that's happened to everybody here. I know one person that's happened to him a couple times. He's with his computer over there.
Oh yeah.
But you don't know. You have no way of knowing, and it's happened to everybody. I get story of this every single day in the bank.
And it's that small that you're talking about.
And it's that small. But it happens to everybody. Like, no, they told me to send the money here, or the wallet is used for scamming people, or they promise you 20% returns every month. Yeah, definitely. Maybe in the pandemic when the market went haywire, that would happen. Today, that doesn't happen.
Right.
But it's a way also, look at it as a way to protect you, okay? Are we going to make mistakes? Maybe.
For sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's a probability, but it's not intentional, right? And over time, it's going to improve.
You're going to be able to
It's a
correct
process,
it, of course. Yes.
right? And the more players get involved, the less difficult it is because we're going to have even more data and we're going to have less false positives. The problem is today is we're not that many players in the game, so there's very little information of who's who, where it's going, where it's coming from.
And then you pretty much have to walk that road alone.
Right? But definitely we're going to make mistakes. Are we going to own up to our mistakes? Yes, definitely we're going to own up to our mistakes.
Which is what the user wants.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, definitely.
I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to open up the floor if somebody wants to ask a question. You say you operate as a fintech within the bank. So where do you stand now between traditional banking, which you're no longer traditional banking because you dip in your toes, right? And DeFi.
No, DeFi, I believe in DeFi, right? Do I believe that that TradFi is going to connect to DeFi? Why don't we call it BFi? Better finance, where they both worlds work together. Do I see that in the future? Yes. That's a dream that I have. How am I going to do it? I have no idea. Yet. I think about it every day. But definitely. But what has DeFi done, right? DeFi is democratized economy, a cheaper economy. But something that's going to happen with traditional finance is, why is TradFi so expensive? Because everything's manual. We use traditional rails. But if I start using, for example, if you're going to send $5,000 over Swift, it's going to cost you 1%. That's $50, and it could take up to 3 days. But now I have given you the option to do it through crypto, and you're only going to pay for the gas fee. And even better than that, all transactions go through batches. So if 1,000 people did a transaction at the same time that you did, and the gas fee was $50 for X or Y reason, you didn't pay $50. The 1,000 people divided
Right. The cost
the cost of those $50. So that's going to make it cheaper, and less people are, because at the end of the day, and tell me if I'm wrong, but people go to DeFi because it's cheaper,
Exactly.
right?
And the time.
And the time, right? But if I give you that same experience at the banking side, that's where
Maybe.
that's where I talk about BeFi, where DeFi and TradFi start working together. Where definitely I find a place where I'll connect you directly to DeFi, and you'll have the option of going to DeFi. But there's one thing I have to be sure. I have to be sure that whoever you're interacting with in the DeFi space is not an illicit actor, right? That's the most difficult part.
Okay. And then you're protected, of course.
Not only me, banks have a responsibility, several responsibilities. Protect the financial system of the country where they are. Protect the bank itself. But one of the biggest responsibilities is to protect their clients. Right? That's something that banks have to do, and it should be in the head of every banker. How do we protect our users? Because we're safeguarding their money, their hard-earned money, which they have the right to use whenever they want, wherever they want.
I think we should have a panel here between Soren and Gabriel, because we're talking about own your own money, control your money, right? But now the bank says it's protecting us, right, as clients. And I think both ideas of philosophy have a place, right? So maybe that's a conversation for later that we can have. Yes? Well, anybody in the audience has a question? Yes. Okay. Now me.
Hey, so you mentioned that you guys are doing borrowing and lending against Bitcoin. Two-part question. One, what is the interest rate that the borrower pays, and is it variable? And two, do you give any sort of lending rates to people that want to just lend their Bitcoin and collect the yield on their Bitcoin, similar to how Aave or Frax or some of these DeFi platforms kind of do with like wrapped Bitcoin?
That's something that the second one that's something that we're looking into. But there's one rule that we've put in the bank, right? The bank doesn't buy, doesn't sell, doesn't custody crypto, right? We don't have crypto on the books, and we are of the belief that banks shouldn't have crypto on the books. Why? Because it's too volatile. It's very high risk. That's something that we've looked into, but to be able to do that, I will have to have it on the books. It'll be an interesting product. And in the case of doing the Bitcoin-backed loans, is a 10% interest annualized, but you only have to pay interest rates, the interest. You don't have to pay capital. You can pay capital at the end of the year, or you can renew the loan for one more year and keep paying interest, and you pay the capital whenever you want to pay the capital. At the end of the day, it's guaranteed. The only rule is you have to maintain the 50% loan to value, and we'll do the call at 65. Given the growth that Bitcoin is having year over year, I wouldn't sell my Bitcoin. I'll just pay for the interest until Bitcoin reaches all-time highs, right?
So, but you just mentioned that you guys don't custody, hold, sell, buy Bitcoin. So how does the loan work in the first place? Where's the Bitcoin that I use as collateral?
Yeah, what we did was we have our own trust that has a contract with a regulated trust that is our liquidity provider in the States. And what you do when you open an account in the bank is you sign a three-party contract: the client, the bank, and the trust. So in no way or form, the bank cannot do anything with your crypto if you don't authorize it. It is bankruptcy remote. So if the bank goes bankrupt, your crypto is safe. The crypto belongs to you. It's under your name in the trust. So that's why there's no, what the bank is doing is acting as a bridge. It is advancing the money. When you go to Iquique and you sell your Bitcoin, that's being sold at the liquidity provider by our trust. The bank is forwarding you the money, but we already sold. So I know that the trust is going to give me that cash when it's ready.
Thank you.
Hello, good. Hello. I actually had once I had the crypto-friendly credit card, so I'm an old customer. My question is, right now there are layer twos in Ethereum that are going to be private. That are going to be privacy first. The one I'm thinking of right now is Aztec network. So these are networks where at the very least you cannot trace between one account and the other easily. It's very hard to do it. It's possible. But you can transfer, for example, USDC in a private way along the Ethereum network. So my question is, how does you already, for example, will have my KYC and the recipient. So how does the bank deal with this? As in, is this considered? Will you accept that money if you know exactly who is receiving it?
Yeah, that's one rule that we put from day one. We don't allow any privacy coins, and for a simple rule, I need to know where the money's coming from. Can that now? It's been pretty obvious. First of all, crypto has never been about privacy, right? Bitcoin has never been about privacy. It's not private. Is right. So it's not about privacy. It's about being still anonymous. It's not anonymous. It's still anonymous. It was designed to be traceable, and I think it should stay that way. At the end of the day, the people that want to hide their money, they want to hide it for other reasons. But at the end of the day, the way technology is advancing, for example, let's look at Tornado Cash. Tornado Cash is not anonymous anymore. Right? Mixers are not anonymous anymore. Right? All that technology has been broken apart. The technology to demix it. Monero is not anonymous anymore. They believe it's anonymous. It's not anonymous. So at the end of the day, all that is going to be broken apart. But there's no need for it. At the end of the day, I believe most of the crypto community, what they want to do is control their money. They want their money to be safe. They want to be protected from devaluation of their currency. That's what they want. They don't want to hide their money.
Yeah, I disagree. Because, again, in the United States, the Supreme Court says that money is speech. And if for example, the government knows exactly who am I talking to and what I'm talking to, therefore they can do a chilling effect on that. For example, now when governments start going authoritarian, like for example Hungary, they start looking at people who have donated to ONGs, and they have a list of that. So at some point, yes, I do not have nothing to hide, but it's not the government, it's not the public, it's not in public, it's not public, it's not in the public interest for everybody to have all their dirty laundry all over the place. So I believe there's a real necessity for privacy coins.
Putting it that way, I agree to a certain point, definitely. But that's also where laws, for example, if you have, and that's the beauty of Panama in a certain way, all banking information is private, right? The only way I can give your information to a government is if they have a court order, right? So banking laws are very heavily shielded when it comes to that. And I think that's something that it should stay like that that's something that's not going to change. I understand the way you're in the direction you're going, and I understand the use case. But as a regulated entity, it would be impossible for me to receive those kind of funds, because I need to know that is not linked to because yes, you're a good actor, but I have no way of telling the difference between the good and the bad actor, and I have to be able to identify them.
Hey, over here. Thank you, Aurel. It's a couple of questions, really. Well, I'm Costa Rican, so if you could just briefly clarify to me the relationship or the lack of relationship between Tower Bank and Páguelo Fácil, since we had like a subsidiary of Páguelo Fácil in Costa Rica, but then it just kind of vanished, but I kind of like the service. So that's one. And the other one is that, well, I work for a crypto project, and we've recently partnered with NACA, which is a credit card scheme on the same rails as Visa and MasterCard. You may know it. And we are on the lookout for acquirers because they're coming from Europe to Latin America. They're already in El Salvador. They belong to Tether, right? So they have strong ties. So I was wondering if my project has technology that can integrate blockchain with traditional banking. How can I get in contact with Tower Bank, and how can I like push this forward? As an example, we had a service that was connected to SEPA Instant running in Europe for about 2 years, and we processed around like $10 million, which is not too much, but like from buying and selling crypto, no KYC, straight from your bank account, instant, you know, and we have been unable to deploy that technology because our bank in Germany was unable to acquire a prop trading license, right? And BaFin basically told them, no, you're not gonna get this, you're too small, get out of the way. So now we're looking into Panama, and I have you on stage, and I wonder, how can, well, first the Págalo Fácil thing, and then how can we start talks to see if our technology can actually go hand in hand with Tower Bank, because I see a lot of opening towards crypto.
In the case of Palo Fácil, I have no idea what happened with Palo Fácil, but I'll talk to you about general regulation, right? That's where I was saying before that the playing field has to be even, right? And that's why regulation is necessary. That at least some guidance of where fintechs and banks have to operate in a certain way. So that's why regulation, because things happen, and any fintech, right? I mean, forget about the fintech. Let's talk about FTX, right? Right. At the end of the day, what happened with FTX was a lack of regulation, not a loss of money, because the money comes and goes. There was a lack of regulation, which affected negatively the community, right? Because it opened the doors to have bad regulation. So at the end of the day, and I was talking to other fintechs before coming here, I was like, because I was going to participate in a panel talking to regulations, like any law that comes into place, we have to be in the same playing field, because we're doing similar things. We're handling funds. But we have to do KYC, we have to do the AML, we have to be registered in the country, and we have to be liable in some way. All right? If I do something wrong in Panama, all you have to do is go to the regulator and put a complaint, right? If for a fintech in Panama or in many countries, you have no place to go and to put a complaint. So some entity has to regulate. In my case, you go to the regulator and say, hey, Tower Bank did A, B, or C, or D, and they're going to come and investigate me.
So, if I may, on the regulator topic, and this is so you can maybe distinguish Panama from other Central American countries, for me in particular. To me, my understanding of regulators is that it is basically game theory. A regulator, by nature, does not want to change anything, because if he does change something, then guilt is upon him. But as soon as one regulator changes something, then the rest of the regulators need to consider this fact in order to take the better decision. How is Panama, or how is the Panama regulation like leading this Central American topic? Because we're such a divided place, right? There's no, you cannot negotiate with Central America the same way you negotiate with the EU, right? You take Costa Rica, you take Panama, you take Honduras, and they are all individual. So how is regulation in Panama moving faster than it is in the rest of Central America?
Fortunately, our regulators are very open to do business, okay? So at the end of the day, they didn't put a wall in front of us, right? They told us, it's not regulated, it's not prohibited, you're a regulated entity, you can do it, right? And that's that because they knew that they had to understand this first, and I think that was a good step. Now we had an intent of a law a few years ago. It got sabotaged and eliminated. Now we have another one, which I believe requires some modification, especially how it's been written. But I do see some openness from them to do modifications, right? I've met with Gabriel Solis many times. I've spoken to him of the things I believe are changing, and he's open to understanding in what way. So I think that the topic is out there, right? They're starting to talk about it. But let's go back to where the mayor announced. When did you guys expect a government entity announcing that they're going to start receiving payments in crypto? Right? The subject is out there. They're starting to talk about it. Things are changing. It's going to take time. Regulation takes time. But we're getting there. I mean, if we talked about this 3 years ago, no one wanted to know about crypto, right? We're getting there. And at the end of the day, but one thing that the biggest difficulty for that, and when you talk,
That can be.
Central America, countries are the worst people to talk together and agree on things, right? I was talking to a regulator a few months ago, and that subject came out, like, how is crypto going to work all over Central around the world? And he said it very clearly, and he's the president of a regulator, and he's like, we're never going to have an agreement with anybody. That's never going to happen. All right? Everybody has their own rules. Everybody has their own intent. But at the end of the day, we're going to have the same way we work with fiat today, the same way we work with credit cards today, with wire transfers. We'll find out a way for it to work.
¿Qué tal, Campas? You were talking before of the subject of Bitcoin friendly. Did Tower Bank try to convince the stores and commerces and restaurants and to get an account with you and start accepting Bitcoin?
That's going to be the next step.
That would make it really a Bitcoin friendly city.
Oh, that's going to be the next, and we're already doing it with some companies, right? We have companies in Zona Libre that sell clothes around Central America, and they had a big problem. These countries were having difficulty to taking the dollars out and to pay for the clothes, and those transactions of $500,000, $1 million, and we've given them the rails to start receiving those payments. So they're starting. At the end of the day, if you're a store, you want to receive cash, you want to receive dollars, you don't want to receive crypto because crypto is too volatile. And you're not in the crypto business. You're in the service business, in selling food, clothes, or exactly. So now that we're going to have the rails to do that, definitely I can go to any store in Panama and say, hey, you don't have to do anything. Here's this device. Just say that you receive crypto. We'll take care of it. But also, many of these stores were scared because given that there's no regulation, and there's a lot of, normally bad press makes more news than good press, right? So more people believe crypto is bad than the amount of people that know that crypto is good, okay? But now that there's a regulated entity giving them the service, and I explain to them, no, don't worry, this is how it works. The bank is securing the transaction. They start, it comes to trust, right? And time over time, trust is going to come back into the table.
Absolutely. Well, let's give it up for Gabriel Campa from Tower Bank.
Thank you.
And he's going to be around for a little. Go right ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Come on, guys. One more time. And now, our next speaker, you're going to have a very friendly conversation with the director of the Authority of Innovation for the government of Panama, Adolfo Fábrega. we're gonna have. He's gonna tell us what is his position and what is the way that the government see the ecosystem evolving. Come on, guys, give it up. You see, every time people hear the word government, it's like, oh, what are we going to talk about? Right?
Not at all. It feels kind of like a stand-up. Maybe I have a skit for that.
Really, huh? Well, before we start, let's get to know you. What is your position? How do you get to be the director of? I mean, what precedes to be director of Authority of Innovation of the? And what is the position of the government of the actual administration towards what's happening in the ecosystem? First, we get to know you a little bit.
Okay, sure. So my name is Adolfo Fabrea. I studied computer engineering in college. Then I came to Panama and I worked at a bank for about 6 years. It was during the time where banks were starting to create and put out services in their online platforms. So I worked at a bank that created a platform where we started doing more transactions than the actual physical locations. At that time, that was a huge deal. That was around 2007 or so, which in that case, Panama was a little late than other countries, but it was a big deal for Panama. And then after that, I actually left the bank in order to create a software company, but I actually worked at the AIG for about 10 months, and that was in 2009. But the reason why I left the bank was actually to start my own business. So I decided to continue that venture, and I left the AIG in a very short time period and started a company that developed a software for corporate administration, purchasing, inventory, accounting, human resources, etc. That's used a lot in the construction industry, in industries that need a lot of back end that is focused in purchasing and cost control more than, let's say, sales, etc. But that I did for a while. It's still operating. But then 2 years ago, I decided to take a year as the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and that requires a lot of time, and that made me change the way I was operating, and I think that was a good move. And then after that, which is just a 1-year term, I was going to go back to my company and focus on internationalization of the services. But then I got a call that changed everything again, and now
To serve the country.
yeah, exactly. So now I've been here for I think only about 7 months because my term started a little later than the president, but it's been a pretty interesting ride so far.
Okay, you mentioned that you were the president of the Chamber of Commerce. What was that shift in your mindset? What do you see that how commerce and ecosystem with crypto was evolving, or was that in your purview?
I mean, when I was in the Chamber of Commerce, one of the let's say most recurring issues is bureaucracy. I hate bureaucracy personally. I think that there's enough technology at our disposition so that we can actually take advantage of it and create very efficient processes. That's what I did in the private industry, and because of that, I feel I have like a very personal issue with processes that can be transformed into something efficient and effective. So that's why while I was at the Chamber of Commerce, there was a lot of talk of why isn't the government doing this and that, or why is the government being so slow, bureaucratic, or why is the government requiring the citizens to go through a series of hurdles for a service that can be very easily provided. That's kind of the main reason why I decided to take a take
This
some
new
time
position.
and put a little effort into it. Walk the walk instead of talking, or at least I'm trying to walk. Let's see.
It's not easy, I'm
We're
sure.
starting.
Because I think that maybe what you found that it's hard to change because people have been doing things in certain way for so long. When you try to transform that, it comes as a shock. So you had any resistance trying to do that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think there's a, when we go into let's say in the private enterprise, when you go into a company to change everything in the company, it's sometimes easier to go into a company that has nothing, and that has everything pretty much disorganized and paper based, because you can do like a quantic jump to something very well organized and very technologically advanced than those companies that have bureaucratic processes ingrained in their culture. That's why in my previous private life, I used to ask a lot, who is the implementing team on the customer side or on the company side, because that's gonna define if the project is gonna be easy or not. When we translate that to a country level, you have the same thing. How ingrained is the bureaucratic process in the country, in the country's culture, and in the let's say culture and lifestyle of the funcionario, as we call him here, the public servant. And obviously that's an issue, because now in the way Panama is, we can try to do a quantic jump to a digital state, but you might miss the fundamentals. The fundamentals in terms of the simple processes that create the governmental ecosystem. In that sense, I'll give you an example, because I might be speaking of something that's not easily understood if you're not in the day-to-day. But in that respect, let's take AI, which obviously is talk of the town.
Right.
We can create an AI agent to automate probably 80% of the
80%
processes.
of, yeah.
Yeah. But why don't we? Or why can't you? It's not because of the technological limitations. At
Sure,
this
there's a
point.
different motivation because as a business person, you make, like you say, you get to a company, you make changes to be more efficient. But being more efficient means also less cost to operate. And the government doesn't really see that. The government doesn't see cost. Or am I mistaken?
No, you're not mistaken. I think well, you're mistaken in that the government, at least this administration, wants to reduce costs, everywhere we can find it. Reduce cost at all costs. But we definitely want to create efficient processes, and we definitely want to automate. You have, for example, some things that don't allow you to do that. One of them is laws that require, for example, there are laws in Panama that require a sello in a document.
Is that necessary?
I mean,
because the law hasn't changed.
yeah, that's because the law hasn't changed. So you have to go through a long process to change the law to reflect what you can do nowadays with technology. But there are some that do not necessarily need that. However, you have to think of so many factors that you don't need to think of in the private enterprise. For example, in public service, you have to think of everybody. In the private enterprise, you say, you know what, we have this amount of people that are just not going to be able to use the service because they need something as basic as a digital device and connectivity. So you know what, I can lose 3% of my customer base because I'm going to benefit greatly 97% of my customer base. You can't do that in the government, right? Or you have to figure out how you're going to get that 3% and transform it into a 97 so that you get complete coverage. So there's those factors that you need to think of. But returning to my point is, you got to decide how aggressive you want to be in technology implementation. And if we talk about blockchain, which is a technology I'm not gonna say I admire, it's just that I know the benefits that you can have in some cases. I usually get suggestions or requests which are very broad. Let's implement blockchain in Panama. What the hell does that mean?
But how?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Where?
How, where, you know, that's not the point. That's not the point of technology. So we have to make sure that we get the fundamentals right. We transform Panama into a digital nation and select the specific use cases that can greatly benefit from technology such as blockchain, such as AI, such as many different that exist recently. And I think not even past administrations have had access to those types of technology. So we're in a very good situation that we can take advantage of. But for example, blockchain, there's use cases in titulación, like
Right.
property, titles. There's
The deeds.
Sorry.
Property deeds.
Exactly. And other use cases ingrained in the processes themselves. For example, I had a recent meeting with Ministerio de Ambiente that have the Estudios de Impacto Ambiental, which is the study that you have to do in order to create a construction project or something like that.
Environmental permits and
Environmental permits. And those are very, very sensitive documents. Those are very sensitive pieces of information. I think a technology such as blockchain can play a very pivotal role in that process, not only to automate or to digitize, but to guarantee trust, as
Right.
somebody was talking about before. You know, in the end, trust is a very important component of the digital transformation that we want to create.
Right. Now, under your leadership, what is AIG's mission? What's your agenda?
So we have four main objectives. One of them is digital transformation focused on the citizen. Digital transformation focused on the citizen means that the interaction of the citizen with the government or with the state has to be digital, 100% online, if you ask me, but seamless, you know, a very simple experience and as efficient as possible. So that, I think, is one of the most important things in our agenda because we are way behind in Panama. That affects us in getting foreign investment to Panama. That affects us in growth of our economy. That affects us in growth of industries. So if we're able to create processes, which is pretty much a service that the government provides in many cases. For example, if you want to register a company, if you want to register for a job, if you're a foreigner that wants to work in Panama, all of those cases need a process in the government that can take a lot of time or it can take little time. We have the issue of corruption that technology can directly impact or improve. If we have good traceability, blockchain again as a possible, you know, great component of that. But if we have great traceability, we can know what transactions are out of range. Not only ones that are taking too long, but ones that are taking too little. Maybe there can be something there as well. So that can give us trust as well. So digital transformation focused on the citizen, the quality of life of the citizen and their interaction with the government. That's our number one objective. Our number two, and actually this is not an order in priority. This is an order just in a list. Number two is cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, I would say, is one of our main objectives in the AIG. I think it's pretty definite and obvious that thank you. I mean, I don't know if it's that obvious, but it is an issue that we have critical infrastructures in Panama that are not at the level we want them to be in terms of cybersecurity. So
you talk about the different departments and ministries of, right?
Critical
Protecting
infrastructures, I mean, for example, systems that control water, systems that control
the grid.
the grid, those types of systems. And then there's some applications that we consider critical infrastructures as well. So for example, the application that runs the financial system in Panama is a critical infrastructure. The application that runs the Caja del Seguro Social is a critical infrastructure. So for example, if I do a DOS in the system that pays all of the retired, people in the pension funds in Panama, you have a shutdown in the country. Those type of applications, we can talk about maybe 10 of them that are critical applications, and then there are some infrastructure as well that require some type of either connectivity or software component that are also critical. So what we're doing is we right now have a very advanced critical response team for incidents. I would say the government actually has a very good incident response team. We are now improving it, of course, and we're creating a proactive monitoring center, so a SOC pretty much. That's going to be a unit that has monitors in these different critical infrastructures so that they can see any tendency or any pattern that's different to what it should be, and then just focus on that, isolate whatever they have to do in order to guarantee.
Kind of like to monitor and debug and realize if there are any threats to the system.
Exactly. So sorry, it's 4. That's number 2 is cybersecurity, and just to finish the other, the others. So we also have transparency as a very extreme objective. We want to create a lot of transparency with the data that the government handles, and put at any citizen that wants to have access to public data have everything that they need in different formats.
Because that can be easy because it's for so long the indexing of all this different information like all over the place. I mean,
we do have an issue with data. Data governance is a big issue. It's something that we're tackling with, but that can create issues in terms of the data being trustworthy, I would say, or
no manipulated.
Se dice confiabilidad de la data. I don't know how to translate it properly, but that means pretty much that you have data that's different in different databases, but it's the same data point. So we are working in governance so that we know exactly who's the owner of a data point, and they have the responsibility to keep it clean.
Okay.
Yeah. Among other things, but that's a very important issue. And then finally, just innovation and connectivity. So when we talk about connectivity, is connecting not only the citizens in terms of them being able to have access to internet and devices, but also the systems, interoperability, so that we can integrate the different systems of the government. For the simple things like people go to do a process and they ask them for the copy of their ID, that shouldn't happen in 2025.
Right.
And for more important things like analytics and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I guess all the different ministries are like disconnected. There's no central database that you can access, and they ask you for the same type of papers every time, and you have to make a dozen copies to visit each one of the ministries.
Exactly, which I don't think we want a centralized database. We might want a data lake for different things, but
for vulnerability reasons.
And for administration. So the difference in the government with, again, let's say a company or something like that, is that the government, every institution has a minister, and that's pretty much like a different company having a different CEO. So you might have a big picture of what you want things to do, which the president has, but every institution has their own, agenda, their own, in the positive connotation of agenda. They have their own,
like the things that they wanna implement, and
and you can't interfere with that. What you can do is what I was saying before: create a framework of interoperability so that they know if they're going to implement a system that has a data point that other institutions are going to need, it's going to be their responsibility to have an API well administered, at the disposition of a centralized boss. That's something that we are doing. And allowing the other institutions to have access to that data point. And then understanding the responsibility of keeping data clean, if it's even more, if it's a data point that is going to affect the life of the citizen or the services that the government provides. So that's one of the main issues that I think we have, and that's more along the lines of actual governance than true, technical infrastructure, like if we put a centralized database or not, that type of thing. Yeah.
Well, as a software engineer, you focus on processes, structure, systems. And part of the problem is that you have to deal with people. So in implementing all these new things, your personal agenda, and I'm sure it comes as a personal mission to you because of your background. How do you get people to get on board with your ideas? Because when you go and look for these services at the different departments of government, so you're going to deal with somebody that is there that may not have the expertise or the know-how of the system. So you can have a perfect system, but then the person doesn't know how to operate or handle. How do you deal with that? What's the plan?
Right. So that's the most difficult question.
That's touchy.
So no. I mean, the thing is, one of the things that I did not expect for my career in IT. I love programming, but I haven't been able to write a line of code in a couple of years. That's kind of frustrating. One of the things that I never thought that my career was going to take me to, and no offense with the psychologists because they study a lot, but is that 80% of my job is psychology right now.
Right.
Literally, as you mentioned, sales. And because change management is one of the most important aspects of technology implementation. And those that are in crypto know,
Right.
the factor that psychology plays in adoption is huge.
It's huge.
It's huge. It's how you sell it, and I think crypto is one of the examples where being a Monday morning quarterback now is totally different than when we were at years ago. I mean, I always remember I was there was a party after a golf tournament, and I was with many very prominent businessmen in Panama. I was way younger than them. And I mentioned, at that time I was playing with mining, I was doing my thing, and I mentioned about crypto, and the response that I had, that I got was, that of a crazy person. But that same crowd, and you guys all had the same experiences, and that same crowd now knocks on your door like, hey, what's going on?
Enlighten me.
Yeah. But what happened from there to now? And it's something that's the same with the technologies that are coming out now. Let's say with AI, I ask people, let me give you an example. You can create a contract in whatever, ChatGPT or anything, right? So will you sign that contract right now, let's say to sell an important piece of your property or something that's going to affect you really? Will you just sign and trust and, go on with that contract? And most of the response is going to be, well, no, right now.
Right.
No, I'll get a lawyer to check it out.
Exactly.
And I do recommend you get a lawyer to check it out. But what is going to change right now and 4 years from now, where people are actually going to, print out the AI generated contract, sign it, and go on.
And move on.
Because the trillions of more parameters that we're going to have is not going to change the lines of the contract that ChatGPT is currently generating.
Right.
What's going to change is the fact that your friend did it and he said that it was okay. It's that type of change management that gets technology adopted and that, gives us that curve of
The bell curve.
where you cross the
Early
chasm.
adopters.
Yeah. So those are definitely the most important issues that I have in terms of the government, because you not only have just an adoption where you can take a risk, and if you get the adoption, great, and if not, maybe you're the one that lost money or your company, and well, you have issues in your own circle. Here you're playing with taxpayer money, so you can't risk it.
Right.
So the fourth objective that we were talking about is innovation, and in that we have, for example, conversations about a stable coin, and the angles that you have to analyze are totally different than the angles that you would analyze in just a private venture. So that has been very interesting.
Right, because you have to consider that psychology. If you come up with a stable coin, I mean, will people use it? I remember, Panama is very particular because we just talked about banking just a while ago with Gabriel, right? The numbers that I have is that Panama is just 20% in the banking system.
Yeah.
And it's Panama. We have all these buildings and skyscrapers. And there's a lot of people out there that either because of bureaucracy or because of lack of trust in the government, they call it informal, which means there's a lot of money in the streets and there's a lot of commerce in the street. So the fact that part of the agenda is to have this, to make it seamless to just access, go online and register your business. Even the tax thing, it's still confusing. I mean, we don't have that culture. Like, in the United States, people are looking at that, and it's like April it's the month that everybody's running to do the taxes. So taking all those factors into consideration, I mean, the work that you have ahead of you, and because of your background, I know that you're trying to create these things, but the resistance that you're getting, and this goes to my next question, just giving you this little thing, backstory. I'm playing devil's advocate, is there's a lack of trust in the banking system in the government, and then you talk about implementing blockchain for traceability. How is that going to work within the government to the citizens? How will you sell that idea?
No, it's going to be a tough sell. I think one of the current motivators is that people are kind of fed up, and people want to do anything that gives them trust from the government. And I think in this administration there have been some very important steps that have taken us closer to that, where we want to be. I think just the president and his plan creates a lot of confidence of where we're going. Now we have to just make sure that we walk that way. That's going to give confidence in investing in Panama, confidence in the banking system, confidence in the logistics sector, confidence all around. But in the end, one of the interesting things that I have listened to now in this role is something that was kind of shocking, which was we hear a lot about other countries and their brands, and we think of what we have as a brand in Panama, but the truth behind it all is that we don't really have a known brand in the world. We think we're known for logistics, but we're not, in the top logistics of the world, on the Singapores and the Rotterdams. We have the canal, which is amazing, and that obviously has something that can create that sense that we're there, but we're not there yet. We have, we think that we are known for different things, but we're not. I mean, the truth is, people know Roberto Duran more than
Panama itself.
most of the, more than the Panama skyline. That's the that's the truth.
Yeah, I hear people say, "Is that Miami?" I mean,
Exactly.
They don't recognize it. Yeah.
Well, amazing things. Like, for example, the owner of one of the most important hotels here in Casco told me that he has a lot of tourists that come in, have, stay there, have breakfast, everything, and they tell him, I didn't know Panama had the skyline. And I would have thought, well, if you're coming, you should at least Google a
Right.
picture of the
Exactly.
place you're going to. But apparently, they're not even doing that.
Yeah.
So the truth is, around the world, we think that Panama is known, everybody knows the canal. We think, Panama Papers was a disaster. Everybody now knows us because of the Panama Papers. We think, well, everybody knows Boquete or whatever we think. The truth is, we have the opportunity to create a brand. I think we have had the misfortune of having some exterior factors create a brand for us in some cases, like in the banking sector, where there's a lot of misinformation because many places think that they can come to Panama. It's going to be very liberal in terms of a financial system, and opening a bank account here is 10 times more difficult
Yeah.
than opening a bank account in
KYC.
pretty much any place in the world. So we have misconceptions, but actually that's an opportunity of building a brand. And in that sense, we can build a brand in terms of being a digital nation. And I think that's still an opportunity. And going back to your point, how do we sell a quantic jump in the way Panama does business, does their public operations, does their private operations? And I think the only way is changing the mindset that can take us to be a digital nation. Now, how we make that change in the mindset requires quick wins that have high impact and are well sold. That creates creates the opportunity in the citizen that gives us the opportunity. I mean, the fact that they can say, maybe we are a digital nation. Maybe you can do things online, and they work well, and they're trustworthy. Those type of things.
What is the one message you want us to take from AIG under your leadership? What can we expect in the future for the blockchain ecosystem in terms of innovation as well? What's that one message?
One message that I think people can consider is that things are different now. I think this administration has a great opportunity because it has good leadership. It has, we want to do very important things and create change. I think we have a very clear roadmap. Maybe the reason why everything got to that point is because of the bad things that have happened in the past. I'm not saying bad administrations. I'm not political. I'm just saying bad things that have happened to our country in general. But all the factors are in place. And in terms of technology, we have technologies that are totally transformational. And if we take advantage of the fact that we are a small country with a world-known, with a worldwide
Landmark, yeah.
footprint, we can have a very fast transition to being considered one of the most advanced digital nations in the world. I truly think that.
Right.
So what do I need, and so that's my message. And what I need to be able to accomplish that is an open mind from the Panamanian population that not all things are bad. That if we implement something, it could have a very good impact. One of the bad experiences that I have had so far is, for example, I was in pro of the laptop project, giving a laptop to every student. That's something that I consider to be a tool that every student should have in order to take advantage of everything that's out there. I mean, everybody in this event, if it weren't for a computer, we weren't be
Right.
pretty much talking or doing anything that we're doing right now. So it's a huge disadvantage if they don't have it. And things have to be done in the right way, but we have to be open-minded that if they're done in the right way, we're gonna get a good outcome. So that would be my message.
All right. Questions?
So yeah, around 2 months ago, the main power. This is not about crypto. About 2 months ago, the main water plant in the Panama City called Chilibre, it got shut down for one day. So the entire country was waiting for information about them. So and the only place that they seemed to be informing people was what once was called Twitter. Today is called X. But IDAN, the National Aqueduct Company already has its own blog and its own website. Another example of the same problem. Our president made some statements about our current relationship with the United States in the same website that's owned by a person that's very close to the current president of the United States, which is X again. So we are using a platform that at any point can be that we do not control, and a communication platform we do not control. So at the same time that all of these institutions, the presidency, the ID, DAN, each municipal system has its own website and its own blog and its own already has its own digital presence, but it's not using that digital presence. It's instead using the social network one. I believe we should be more. We should own our digital presence of each institution has to own its digital presence. Otherwise, we are vulnerable. Otherwise, we are vulnerable to the real important information, like the IDAN information, the water company information. It can be lost.
That's a very, very important point. We're talking about trust and confidence. And as you mentioned, every time that we need to put out a formal message, they just create a JPEG and distribute it through WhatsApp. So I don't think there's an easier way for phishing than that. One of the main issues, and it's what I was kind of talking before, is the fact that you have so many different separate, what we call silos, so many separate entities doing their own thing. So in a more tactical standpoint, one of the projects that we currently have is a single portal or a single point of interaction between the citizen and the government. And that's not only in terms of transactions, that is also in terms of communication. That's one of the things that we want to create. And your profile as a citizen is going to be part of that. And that's a very long conversation, but just to give you a hint, one of the things that we are currently trying to work with institutions to implement is something as simple as a single sign-on. So you currently have tons of systems in the government, and you have different users, yes. You have different users for everything. So you're not only a mess in like, how do I interact, but you also don't understand the complexity of the government as a citizen. So if you need something, it's like, where do I go? What do I do? You have no idea. And that creates, fear. And this is actually like amazing, because I always thought, and that's now my psychological know-how. I have to read books on psychology now, but what I had never realized, I thought, well, what that creates is just bad service. If you have, let's say, a bank, and the bank has a different website for each department, that bank is gonna, go bankrupt quick. That's what the government does. And if we create something that allows you to understand the government more simply, I think that can have huge value for the citizen. What's another value that we get out of that? Better communication, as what you were saying. So what I was saying about fear is that, surprisingly, what I thought was, if the government looks to you like a huge mess, I thought what you get is lack of confidence, and what you get is just rejection. Like, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to go somewhere else. What I didn't know, and that I understood in the last couple of months from studies that I have received, is that what people actually do is get fear. So they think, I might do something bad, and since the government can't come after me if I do something wrong, then I just get fear of doing something. So imagine the fact that having different systems not connected as silos is actually causing fear in the citizen. That's terrible. That's one of the reasons why we're trying to build this ecosystem. So in the next couple of weeks, and I actually have a meeting with the president next week where we're going to talk about this, is promoting, in terms of change management, promoting a project which is going to be a brand that's going to exemplify the change that we need. And then in the more tactical sense of that project is this portal, is an app where you can interact, is a new payment system, is a more efficient electronic signature component that we're working with Registro Público for that, a better management of your profile. That's a huge part of it. Identity management, if you want to call it that way, but we're starting in the tactical sense in the single sign-on. And an interoperability layer in the bottom. Under that, the actual data points, the actual databases that run our system or our whole ecosystem. So this is like a big picture thing that needs a lot of sponsorship from the government head, which is the president, but it needs a lot of sponsorship from the citizens. So that's actually the summary of my message is, we're going to put out this communication about this huge project. What we need is sponsorship from the citizens. And in that, in a more tactical sense, I think we might be able to fix that issue of the communications, which in terms of cybersecurity is something that, to me, every time I receive a communication, as you mentioned, in X or in an unverified social media channel, or worse than that, in WhatsApp as a JPEG, I'm like, wow, this is a huge risk. Yeah.
Yes, I do have another question. Well, I have a ton of questions, but I think that's normal when someone from the government is talking. But I want to focus my question on the digital presence, following the same lines that he mentioned, the digital presence of the citizens, because the same thing that happens with communications happens with, for example, an ID. My digital presence in a bunch of different websites. DGI have a profile of me. The TE have another profile of me. The Transito have another profile of. I mean, I have like 50 different users in different pages that do not communicate with each other to share what I think is basic information. So in that sense, is there something that you're planning to fix that? If it can be fixed, probably not in the short term, but something that you think that can be done in that sense?
So that's one of the, let's say, to me, that's like one of the top 5 issues that we have been tackling with. And that conversation has a huge spectrum of complexity and depth. We can just talk about identity management. We can just talk about access management. Where do I have access? what's my role in this and that? Who am I? And then there's all the authentication that's after that. But in the end, the ideal would be that we get a good profile from the citizen, good interoperability so that profile has a lot of information, and we can use that information for better services and for the government to understand who your customer is, which is, from where I come from in the private sector, as the most important question. Who's my customer? I'll give you an example. There's a lot of subsidies here in Panama. Well, who's absorbing those subsidies? Who's actually benefiting from that? We don't really know to the extent that we should. So all of that data should be used as a fundamental piece of this great ecosystem that I was talking about. What's the issue with that? Risk, in terms of that's going to be extremely valuable data. And I'm not talking about your phone number where you live. I'm talking about your behaviors in some cases, because you interact with government in many cases. The psychographic, exactly, where we should know what car you have, what's your home, does your grandmother live in the same home as you? Because maybe if we're talking about subsidies for the gas tanks that is currently a subsidy in Panama, then your home should have more gas tanks because you have more families in the same household. So all of that goes into data that's going to be extremely valuable. So in that case, the question comes in, I can probably respond for me. I don't want to be in a difficult situation later on. I can respond for me. I know the value of that data, and I know the risks of that, and I know that I'm not going to get into issues handling that, mishandling that. But we don't know what comes, after. So the conversation goes into, what about Web3? Should that be distributed? Should the government not have a part in that other than gathering and administering? But maybe that's totally distributed. Maybe we use a blockchain for that. So all of that conversation is, we're currently having that. The fact that we need a conceptual, centralized identity that helps us provide better services, I think that it's a definite thing, and we're trying to move in that direction. Sorry for the long response.
Yeah, about that identity. Thank you. There's also that's also a subject I wanted to talk about. Okay, right now in Panama we actually do have a centralized entity that handles all identification of every single Panamanian and has a lot of valuable information. That's called the electoral tribunal, and that's the reason. And that's the reason why one of the reasons, many reasons why the crypto law had stumbled a few years ago, because they tried to impose digital identity on the tribunal, and the tribunal did not. The National Assembly cannot order the tribunal, as I understand. So a question here is. Are you working with the electoral tribunal for handling digital identities? For example, a wish list of mine will be to be able to sign stuff via using my cédula, the card that every single Panamanian has. I want to be able to sign documents with that cédula through a computer without using that as a digital signature. So it should be valid. I think many countries already do that. Estonia does that.
Yeah. To the first part, definitely we're working with Tribunal Electoral very hand in hand. They have the responsibility, as I was talking before, in terms of data governance. They are the ones that should be the owner of who each of us is and the actual identity. I do consider that one thing is, in a digital sense, knowing that you are you, and another separate thing is knowing that you approved something one thing is, your actual, and we can go into identity, the authentication part of it, something that something that you have, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of that you actually approved a transaction, that you signed it, I personally think that's not in the responsibility of Tribunal Electoral. I think they're in charge of the who. So in terms of digital signature, I think that's something that should be so distributed that the private enterprise should be the leader in the electronic signature market. What that does is that it creates the inability of doing what you actually said, where you unite the ID, like the physical ID, with the digital signature. However, I think we might get a benefit if we tie them both, so that the digital signature, is based on your identity, which in part is, in hand is controlled by the Tribunal Electoral. That's the role. But your digital signature to be a service that's provided by the private enterprise. Currently, we have in Panama, we only have one company that's starting that, but Registro Público is the one that certifies the signatures. That we're going to open for companies to do it, and the government is just going to be the regulator, the regente of that. Service-wise, in terms of what you do with that, you're going to feel like it's the same thing, but Tribunal Electoral is probably going to be focused on just identity. I don't know if that makes sense. It's a very interesting topic, what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, because you have to look at, like you say, who's going to handle the information, which is the crucial part.
And electronic signatures is very important, because
Yes.
it's in Panama, by law, it's no repudiable. You can't say I did not sign that.
Right.
In paper, if you go to trial, you can first validate if you did or did not sign that paper. With the digital signature, you can't. It's if your signature is there,
Because
it's
you can't
there.
prove it, right.
And there's a ton of different factors that go in to validating that you actually used your digital signature. So it's very tricky, and it has to be very well implemented. And that's why, let's say the government, if it's a good supervisor in that, and we have good practices in place, we can open it to private enterprise and have them provide very good digital signature services.
To have all
But
the things in place to prevent.
Exactly. But it does have to be totally integrated with Tribunal Electoral in terms of identity. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap this up. We want to thank you for your time. I know you have another appointment
Yeah.
there.
Thank you.
And I know that part there is going to be, I think, part of another conversation, because as you say, there's a depth to it that we
Yeah.
need to think about and consider. So thank you
Thank you.
for your time. Thank you for being here and sharing your knowledge and sharing what lies ahead for Panama. We're going to take a break now. I'm going to be back here in about an hour. Yeah, so you can go eat, and let's give it up for Adolfo Fabrega, Director of AIG.